Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead, friends and family of the internet. Look, I know you guys are going to get upset. I know what I'm fixing to show you is going to make you doubt everything you've ever believed in, except for the Word of God. Yesterday, we deep dove. What was the first thing Jesus warned his disciples about before the second coming? That no man deceives you. So please understand this. I'm not doing this because I don't like the kid. I'm not doing this because, oh my gosh, Samantha, you just want to tear somebody down. I'm doing it because the deception is so apparent and we all fell for it, including me. I remember about 8 months ago, I covered some of the Portland ice raids, I guess more like 6 months ago. And I clipped in some stuff Nick Shirley did, and I will never forget. A human, a person just like you on YouTube said, Sam, I'm going to warn you now. That boy is not who he seems to portray. And I thought, golly, aren't you a negative Nelly? Like, come on. Today, we're going to talk. I'm going to show you some things that are going to blow your mind. Do you remember how we all knew there wasn't quite something right with the Erica Kirk situation after Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Do you remember how I showed you the depth of the Jesuit and Mormon plans to control the entirety of the world? And that Charlie Kirk was assassinated in Orem, Utah, the place of the dragon. And that Charlie Kirk's name literally meant the church. So the church was killed in Orem, Utah, by a Mormon. Later, we find out that the majority of people that work on the staff for Turning Point USA are Mormons. Then I realized through deep research that the Mormon church has always wanted a theocracy in the United States. They wanted the Mormon church to control this country. They wanted to remove our constitutional republic and turn us into a church-controlled country. Now, over the past 150 years, they've rebranded. They have not made their history go away, and they have not moved away from their full intentions. When I pointed out that Nick Shirley was a Mormon, it was not to be ugly, but it was to shed some light onto what I'm fixing to show you. Everybody knows Nick Shirley was the first person allowed into CCOT in El Salvador. Aren't any of you even curious how a young man, 20, maybe 22 years old at the time, was allowed into a maximum security for life prison where people will never be free again in a foreign country when he had 200,000 YouTube subscribers? No, nobody questioned that. I even questioned it at the time. I'm like, how did he do that? Let me explain something to you. The CCOT in El Salvador is generally restricted, and access is typically limited to authorized personnel and select media outlets. Now, I would have understood if Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly or Charlie Kirk had been given access into CCOT. They have millions. Officer Tatum, millions of followers across all their social media. But Nick Shirley was a 22-year-old, very awkward, scraggly young man from Utah with 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. Please understand, guys, when I say that's literally not possible. That he was given access to CCOT because he was a media influencer? For specific inquiries about visiting, you may need to contact the Salvadorian Ministry of Justice. Okay. So let me lay this out for you. Nick Shirley, 22 years old, would have had to have reached out to the Salvadorian Ministry of Justice to receive permission to visit CCOT. He himself would have known nobody inside of this. However, the Mormon church sends out missionaries all over the world. And lo and behold, you ought to look into where Nick Shirley spent his year or 2 years where he goes off on mission work. It really does help connect the dots. So let's just say it like it is. The Mormon church got an opening for Nick Shirley. Because not only do you have to have a passport, which he obviously does because he's been to like 18 countries, you have to get a tourist card that only costs like $12 or $18. But access to CCOT is highly restricted. In fact, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, are not even permitted to go. So the Red Cross is not permitted into CCOT, folks. Most people that get through those doors come as an official delegation that has to be coordinated with the Salvadorian government for permission to visit. You also have to have contacts with the U.S. Embassy to get through the door. So again, how does a young man that just graduated in 2020 end up in CCOT in 2024 with his mommy and less than 200,000 subscribers on YouTube? Get mad at me. That's okay. I understand the frustration that it just seems like we can't get any podcasters or social media influencers that have more than 800,000 subscribers that are not sold out and paid for by somebody. I get it. You don't think it doesn't frustrate me? I don't even get paid by YouTube. 7 months, not a penny. But I still keep speaking truth because we have to understand that we have bad actors on both the left and the right. Just because he claims he's Christian doesn't mean he is. He's Mormon. Now, what I'm going to show you is going to blow your mind. If you would like to row in our boat, folks, we will be leaving tomorrow for my husband's surgery. Most of you already know this. He is 46 with a brain aneurysm. We'll be gone for a couple of days. I'll try to do a video during those times of recovery, but I can't promise you guys anything. Let's start here. This is on X. It says, this is remarkable. How did you get at Sync or whatever he said at your event? Charlie Kirk just invited him. Look what he wrote. I just met future President Charlie Kirk. Told you guys they were prepping Charlie Kirk, and somebody on the right did not want him there. New independent journalist Nick Shirley just went to the White House and is now going nuclear on the fake news for not covering the Portland riots. Friends and family, you may show you who Nick Shirley took to his senior prom with him, and you get upset with me, I'm okay with it. He took his mom. Why? Because it was during COVID, and I guess they shut it down. But I don't know. That's just odd to me. You could say, oh, but that's so sweet, Sam. I see things different, you guys. All right. So, new independent journalist. So he's saying Antifa has been operating out of the building next door, and that, nobody's doing anything.
Their operation in a building right next to an ICE facility for over 100 days. And legacy media has never even gone to show what was happening there. And it just took a few independent journalists like myself to show America what was actually happening.
I mean, they're accusing you guys of recycling video that's like 4 years old. I mean, what have you seen recently that just shocked you?
Yeah, just how Portland PD, they would not stand up for the independent journalists when it was very obvious. There was video footage of them getting attacked by some of these Antifa members, and it just happened that for some reason these independent journalists could actually beat these Antifa guys in a fight when it came down to it, and they arrested them. Yeah, well, they're mad because the truth is being shown. Antifa
And I had an ex-Antifa on my YouTube channel the other day. He told you guys that the Portland PD and Eugene Police Department, all of those are working with millionaires to fund this. So yeah, you've got some dirty cops. Here's Nick Shirley, October 8th. Problem could have been solved months ago. Always great to speak with you, Jesse. Guys, I'm going to tell you guys the truth. This doesn't feel right that this boy, he went and sat down with the president of the United States. He's been to 15 countries doing journalism and with gangs and prisons, being where he's going into. He said the U.S. is by far the most dangerous. What a way to get a Mormon plant right into the ear of the President of the United States. To do what? To spark off another civil flipping war.
And then we'll get, should we be taking questions, or is it just a waste of time? Because they can ask questions, but, well, there's Brian, he's good. But you know what? In a way, it's a waste of time, because if you give a great answer, they don't put it on. If you give a horrendous answer, or even if you give a great answer, they make it sound like it's not a great answer. They're very dishonest. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, and I think part of that dishonesty comes from what they see. For instance, I've never been asked to go on any other show besides Fox News. My clips go viral everywhere, but they've never even asked, like CNN's never asked, MSNBC's never asked. And a lot of times when I go to hotels, I'll stay and I'll watch like MSNBC.
Fortunately, their ratings are terrible.
They are terrible.
MSNBC is dying, and CNN is dying like a dog.
And
poor CNN, it's so pathetic.
It is very pathetic.
You ever see their anchors in the evening? That nobody ever heard of them. Where did these people come? I could.
Great question, President Trump. Where did this kid come from, President Trump? And this is what I think really frustrates the average American that our government is not understanding. Nick is not sitting in that seat organically. Nick Shirley's parents or the Mormon church greased a lot of hands to get him to sit where he's sitting. I know that's uncomfortable, but friends and family, organic YouTube channels that grow with no backing, all right? The Squirrel Tribe, me, there's a few others. It takes us 8 to 10 years to get to 800,000 or 1 million subscribers. Why? Do you want to know? The Mormon church, it is the 8th on their list of places that they invest in through the stock market. Do you know what the 8th most invested in is? Google. Google owns YouTube. So within 3 years, this young man has jumped higher than the average organic YouTube channel. Why? Because the Mormon church is very influential financially where Google is concerned. They fund him. If you have people funding you, traveling all over the world, then that's great. You can be in the right place at the right time, but organic channels can't do that. Here he is, December 18th of 2024. I don't think people understand the impact I had in getting President Trump elected. My videos received over 1 billion views, opening the eyes of millions of Americans and sparked conversations with some of the most influential people in the world, like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. Yeah. Let me show you guys something a lot of people don't want to know about Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley came to Ukraine to pretend there wasn't a war happening. He pumped out Russian propaganda from Kyiv and insinuated life was great here. Unfortunately for Nick Shirley, I spoke to his fixers today who told me he was terrified the entire time. He told them he didn't want to visit the frontline cities despite being offered to go. So he knew how bad it was and still decided not to show it. All of this contradicts Nick's post saying he didn't have accreditation to go anywhere outside Kyiv, so he couldn't show the reality of the war. Nick has been caught lying. So he says America's the worst, the most dangerous country in the world. That is propaganda. Because when he was in a foreign country, he refused to go to the front lines of the war. And this young podcaster
efforts to smear Ukraine seem to be through the roof at the moment. We had the Tenet media scandal exposed only 10 days ago that showed tens of millions of dollars funneled into making Russian disinformation pumped into Americans' news feeds. And now there's a new kid on the block, Nick Shirley. This is a kid that arrived in Kyiv a couple of months ago and decided to start showing the world that apparently there's no war going on in this country, that because there's some fast cars on the streets and because there are some places people try to continue living their lives as normal, that means there isn't a war going on. Well, Nick actually did know that there was a war going on. And I know that because today I spoke to both of his fixers. Both of his fixers offered to take him to Kharkiv, but he declined. He told his fixers that it would be too scary for him to go there. And that's strange, because Nick wants us to think that there isn't a war going on here. They also took him to some incredibly damaged places north of Kyiv, hospitals that were bombed, trenches that were dug, buildings that were destroyed, and none of it was shown in any of his reporting. Instead, Nick decided to come here and only show a very nice area of the city and then say there wasn't a war going on. And there are two reasons this could have happened. One, he was directly paid by the Russians to make this propaganda, and that isn't something that's too controversial to believe because we have evidence that they're paying right-wing commentators left, right, and center in the US to do this. Or two, he's being used as a pawn by the Russians, and he's being paid by the Twitter algorithms to put out extremist, crazy, controversial content, and that's what's incentivizing him. Regardless of which option it is, Russians love what he's putting out. I don't think I've seen a more egregious example of propaganda since I arrived in Ukraine. I mean, this is someone in the capital city basically saying there isn't a war happening here and that your tax dollars are being wasted. These are the same kind of talking points we saw from Tim Pool, who was also on the Kremlin payroll, saying that Ukraine is the enemy of America and it's a waste of taxpayers' money. And I don't think it's a coincidence that all of this is happening just before the election. Unfortunately for Nick, I spoke to both of his fixers today and both went on the record to say this. Corey, when did Nick first get in touch with you?
Okay, so I had a friend, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a friend I trust, and he asked if I want to be a fixer for this Nick guy, because I have a lot of connections in Kyiv, who was going to drive him around and what he was going to see, so I created like this agenda for him. So I have friends that's basically like drove him around. The thing about Nick, his online persona is different from his real life persona. I talked to him on the phone several times before he came to Ukraine. I talked to him while he was in Ukraine on the phone to make sure everything was fine. And, you know, his, I guess, real life persona, he's very like soft-spoken. You know, he was very nervous when he was in Ukraine. He felt kind of unsafe. I asked him if he wanted to go to maybe Kharkiv or one of these like frontline cities. And he said he doesn't feel safe enough to do that. And, you know, he was feeling uneasy and even nervous in Kyiv. And that's not even like in a frontline city. So he didn't want to do that. But then when I see this post, he's acting like so confident. And it really just makes my blood boil because this is not the Nick that's, you know, when I was talking to you on the phone. He was just like a young, soft-spoken, like nice guy from what it seemed.
Right.
So you're saying he was too scared to go to Kharkiv and actually too frightened to even be in Kyiv, despite telling the world that there was no war here?
No, he was absolutely, you know, feeling like he was in a war zone in Kyiv. And he knew for a fact that he doesn't need accreditation to go to Kharkiv, because I was telling him, like, you could just go to Kharkiv, you could see what it's like, because over there it's, you know, more serious with their air alarms, and, you know, Russia is constantly attacking the eastern part of Ukraine. And he felt like, you know, he didn't want to put his life in danger.
You know what it shocks me about most conservatives, because I can understand what's happening right now. We understand that the left is being fed propaganda, and it's frustrating because you and I know that we are not fascist. We are not racist. We are not trying to force women to birth babies, all this weird crap that the left gets fed. Do you guys never consider the fact that maybe the right is always also being propagandized? Has that not slipped into your mind? Because it's hard to see something happening to someone else and you're like, golly, don't they know that that's not true? Like, we're not the people that you're trying to paint us. but maybe they aren't the people that they're trying to paint to us either. And this is where I get really frustrated because it's like I'm allowed to speak about liberals and leftists, but I'm not allowed as a conservative Christian woman to be concerned about the voices of the conservative party at this point in 2025. We're in very dangerous territories, friends and family.
So he wanted to stay in Kiev. I thought he was going to have, some sympathy or not be a sociopath like he is. He feels like, clicks and views are more important than people's lives. And this is what makes me even further, pissed off. But I've never seen anybody do it as blatant, as you said, as something like Nick did.
Darina, thank you for joining me. So you're the person that actually drove Nick around on his trip where he posted this video. What was that like?
Yeah, sure. So Corey reached out to me actually and asked if I could help an American blogger with the car, with my car meaning, to show him around, to show him cities, some destroyed areas, villages nearby, cities nearby like Bucha, Irpin. And because it was like really close to me, and because Corey said that Nick is going to, take care of everything, gas and all that, I thought, okay, I will show him around. Why not? And first thing he told me, are these sirens like a common thing here? Because like I heard it yesterday and I freaked out. And I was like, yeah, it's a common thing. Like, it doesn't mean it will hit you this time, but still, like, it's on. Some people go to shelter, some people don't. So he was kind of scared. But I also remember that he asked me a question when we were driving, like, I see so many fancy cars, like BMWs and, different ones. Not that fancy to me. Fancy car is, I don't know, like some Mustang or something like that. And I said, and he asked, those fancy cars, who do you think these people work for? Like, what do they do to have those fancy cars? And I was like, well, this is a strange question because I work in IT, like a individual contributor, in a normal company. And I just bought a second car just because I need it, because my boyfriend uses another car and I need this car. And actually you can easily buy a BMW, like a used one from America, from the auction and stuff like that. And I couldn't understand, like, this is weird. In the video he posted about those fancy cars, of course there are some fancy cars, but there are rich people everywhere, come on. And we are not in some like third world country. Exactly. And just because we are in the war state with Russia doesn't mean that we cannot buy cars, come on, and live a fancy life. And for some people, this is the only thing they got left, After we were in Irpin, in Bucha, and Nick was really like very surprised how the houses were, burned and destroyed. And one thing I noticed is that he sometimes, and he confused who hit what. So I'm telling, so this was hit by Russians. And he's saying in the video, this was hit by Ukrainians while Russians were running away or something like that. I'm like, dude, you should be saying another thing. I just told you, so this is not true. I still cannot believe that this video about fancy cars was not a joke, just a bad joke, making up things on the go. So I never heard him saying that he was going to some frontline cities. I don't know that I don't think he ever wanted to go to the frontline cities.
So Nick knew what was going on, right? Nick was shown the hospitals. Nick was shown the trenches. Nick was told the stories. Nick was terrified for his life when he heard the first air raid siren in Kyiv. Yet he still decided to leave this country and say that there was nothing to be worried about and that your taxpayers' money was being wasted. This is a person who has made a moral decision to put out propaganda that he knows isn't true.
Having shown you this video, do you believe that we can believe Nick Shirley Now, I'm asking. I think that you should watch his information very carefully. You should question how he is just driving by and this pops off. And then the Muslims got a hold to his um, Nick Shirley, Minnesota video that he did and turned it into flipping propaganda to promote Muslims. Yeah, here's him right here. If the administration actually took Nick Shirley to CCOT, that's a serious lapse in judgment. Access like this is usually reserved for vetted press or law enforcement officials, not influencers with no record in journalism or security. This is propaganda. Huh. Qatar has infiltrated our schools. Saudi Arabia is taking our sports and entertainment. We are giving Qatar an airbase. The United States is being sold to the Middle East. Charlie Kirk criticized Islamists openly and regularly, yet we don't accuse Islamists of murdering him. Wonder why that is. Hmm. I'm going to tell you what, guys, I've got the rest of that video somewhere in here where he actually speaks to Nick Shirley and calls him out. And he's like, like just one excuse after another why he didn't show everything that those people in the Ukraine brought him to see. And I'm telling you guys right now, you better be careful. You better start questioning how a nobody from Utah ended up 4 years after high school graduation at the CCOT in El Salvador. When it took American mainstream media months to get the passes to get there. In fact, CNN honestly thought they were the first ones. And when Nick Shirley was like, no, me, look, I did it first. They were like, how? Maybe there's a reason they're not. I'm not backing CNN or MSNBC. I think they're crap. But I'm also very concerned about Fox News too. If you think that you can't be hoodwinked because you're a conservative, that may be where that Bible verse where Jesus says, remove the plank out of your own eye before removing the splinter out of your brother's. That may come into play here. I'm just saying, why is it that we're finding out that our biggest promoted podcasters with indoors into the White House all seem to be being funded by foreign countries? Because yes, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, they were all implicated. I know what you're going to say. All that was washed away, Samantha. It was all figured out. Fine. Where there is smoke, there is fire. Tucker Carlson, Qatari money pumping into his bank account. Look at him now. Candace Owens, married, became a Jesuit. Look at her now. Megyn Kelly, online crying about how angry she is with God because a medallion of a dead saint didn't save Charlie Kirk's life. Another Catholic. Where are the Christian podcasters? Conservative Christian podcasters, not Mormons, not Jesuits, and for the love of God, not wannabe Mormons. Wannabe Muslims. Where just true biblical believing Christian podcasters not getting paid by YouTube, being shadow banned. Half of you can't hit the like button on my videos. You tell me every time. You'll be in the middle of my video and they take you off. They unsubscribe people from me all the time. I get hit by bots like you wouldn't believe. They pay people to stalk my channel and I have to constantly block these people and they just come back. Crazy when the truth comes out. Pam Bondi worked on Epstein's first case in Florida, like 15 something years ago. She was working on that case. Nothing happened to him. He gets out there, does a whole lot more damage to a whole lot more girls. Somehow Pam Bondi ends up the Attorney General of the United States, gets the Epstein list, and again, nothing burger. Then all of a sudden, Benny Johnson's being threatened. And I'm not saying the threats are okay. Y'all need to quit with that. But I do have a reason to say, wait a second. I get threats all the time. I don't go to the federal government. I go to my local sheriff, who I pay land taxes to come in and do, like, protect me. That is his job. But Benny Johnson gets the Department of Justice and the entire White House? Come on, you guys. This has to stop. I don't know. Something feels very wrong. And I'm going to keep exposing them. You can stay on the channel or you can get mad at me. That's your choice, but nobody's going to shut me up. When I see something that doesn't feel right, I'm going to stop acting like I don't see it. I'm going to stop acting like I'm wrong for questioning what's right in front of my face. It's the last thing I'm going to say to you, and please hold this to your heart today. My daddy, Papa Sammy and Allybug, a lot of you follow him, once looked me dead in my eyes and said, Pumpkin, do you want Daddy to believe his lying eyes or his lying ears? I'm going to ask you to do that today. I'm going to ask you to pray about it before you pop off with some insane comment accusing me of something nefarious because I care enough to point out that it smells like rotten apples. And we all know if there's one rotten apple in the whole bushel, the rest will rotten too. I love you guys so much. Please make sure to pick up your book, Growing Under a Poisoned Sky. You can get it on eBay, Walmart, Barnes and Nobles, Kindle. Type out Growing Under a Poisoned Sky. My book pops up. Also, I have one more book that I can sign, and then I can auction it off. So if you'd like to make a bid, just know you're going to pay more than this cost because I have to buy it, then I have to sign it, then I have to ship it. And I'm trying to actually make money for my husband's surgery because, again, nobody pays me, including Israel. God Almighty in heaven does. Now, he is the God of Israel and the God of Christians. So, if it makes it happy to think that somebody pays me to have a little common sense and that helps you sleep better at night, then touche. Love you guys so much. Have an amazing Sunday. Thank you for your time.